Hello, fifth graders. So we have reached almost the end of our book. We don't have hardly any new lessons left, and then we're down to just a review. And this lesson is very easy, so we shouldn't have any problems with it. So anytime you're multiplying, remember, whenever you're multiplying, you're making a number bigger. For instance, remember if we had 16 times 3, both 16 and 3 would be smaller than the answer. So multiplying and adding are making numbers bigger. Subtraction and dividing are making your numbers smaller, or your answers are smaller. So if you remember that, that will help you when you're multiplying by tens, hundreds, and thousands. Remember what they use the term annex for just adding a zero. It's a little trickier when you're in a decimal, because before you add zeros, you're moving your decimals over to get them to the end of the number, and then you add zeros. But we'll look at that and do this together. So we're going to multiply each of these numbers by 10, 100, and 1000. All right, so if I have 18 and I multiply it by 10, I just add 1 0. Multiply it by 100, I add 2 zeros. Don't forget the comma. If I multiply by 1000, I add 3 zeros. 273 times 10 would become 2,730. And then every time you just add a zero. All right, 46 becomes 460, then 4,600, and 46,000. Nine becomes 90, which becomes 900. So do you notice when you have a whole number, when you're multiplying by 10, the 10 has 1 0, then you add 1 0. The 100 has 2 zeros, you add 2 zeros. The 1000 has 3 zeros, you add 3 zeros. Sorry, it's early in the morning. I'm all froggy. Let me take a drink of my coffee. All right, 147 becomes 1,470. How easy is this, right? Just don't forget to put the commas on the right place value. All right, multiply each decimal or mixed number by 10. Okay, so now it gets a little trickier, but not much. So when you're multiplying this number by 10, you just simply move the decimal to the right one place. So it will become 13.89. When you multiply by 100, you move it 2 places. And you multiply by 1,000, you move it 4 places, which makes it a whole number at that point, and you don't have to put the decimal. 3 places. I say 4 places, then 3 places. Okay? All right, let's try this one. 2.764. So we times it by 10, and you move it over once. Oops. Let me erase that. Did that wrong. Multiply it by 100, move it over 2 places, multiply it by 1,000, and it becomes a whole number. 7.803 would be 78.03 times 10, 780.3 times 100, 7,830 as a whole number. 5.789 becomes 57.89. 578.9, 5,789. 16.325 becomes 163.25. And then 1632.5 times it by 100 times it by 1,000, and it just becomes a whole number. Now, what happens if you have less numbers than zeros? So if we have 1.5 and we multiply it by 10, by 10, we move the decimal once and it becomes 1.5, right? If we multiply it by 100, it's now 15. So now the decimal's like right here. We don't write it, but it's understood that it's right there. So it's now at the end of the number. So when we multiply it by 1,000, we would now add the 0. 0.28 times 10 would be 2.8. Times 100 would be 28. Times 1,000 would be 280. 0.5 would become 5 times 10. Sorry, I'm at the bottom of the page here. So times 100 would be 50, and times 1,000 would be 500. 0.16 would be 1.6. Then 16 times 100. Well, this was times 10. Did I say? I may have said that wrong. 0.16 times 10 would be 1.6. Times 100 would be 16. Times 1,000 would be 160. 0.8 would become 8 times 10. And then 80 would be times 100. And 800 would be times 1,000. Pretty cool, huh? All right, lesson 160. Oh. All right. Fill in the blanks with the correct decimals. These are the ones that I did with you on Zoom the other day. So the easiest one would be the 1/2. Let's do that one first. That one is 0.5. And then the fourths, which I only see one of those, 1/4. I always think of quarters. It takes 4 quarters to make $1, so 1/4, 1/4 would be 0.25. I had you convert them to percents, but you're not doing that on here. The fifths would be the next easiest. We have 1/5, 2/5, and 4/5, I see. So 1/5, on this one, I mentally divide $1 up into 5s. If you take $1 or 100, divide it by 5, you get 20. So one of those would be 20.20, 20 cents. Two of those would be 0.4 or 0.40. Either one is the same. 4/5 would be 0.8 or 0.80. I like to think of it with a 0 because we always move it over twice. All right, the thirds are easy. Okay, they're repeating, but remember 1/3 is 3 repeating, so it would look like this forever. 2/3 is 0.6 repeating, so it would be this forever. Okay? Oh, can't write the rest of the dots. It's not on my page. Tenths are super easy. Think of dimes. 1/10 would be 0.1 or 0.10. Now we're left with the hard ones. The eighths. And some of these I'm going to look on my book. I think 1/8 is 0.125, and then 3/8 would be 0.375, and I checked my book to make sure I was right on that. 5/8 is 0.625. And then we have the 6s, which they are repeating also, like the 3s are repeating. 1/6 is a little bit easier to remember because it's the same numbers, but you just put the repeating symbol above the 6. And then 5/6 is 0.8 with the 3 repeating. All right. Don't forget in the review, A and B, you'll do it until it terminates. That means until it's finished, okay? Sorry. Whereas C and D, you're going to round it to the nearest hundredth. So it must go on forever. So you're going to round it to 2 places after the decimal if you do C and D. All right? So on number 6, you're rounding to the nearest tenth. So if I see 0.67, I want to round it to the 6. And the 7 will round that up to a 0.7. Do you remember that? Number 7, you're rounding off to the nearest hundred. So I went 2 places after the decimal. I look at that 7, it will round the 8 up. So it becomes 0.19. Find the quotients, don't forget. You change it to a multiplication problem. You flip the second number. Cross cancel. 9/7 is 1 2/7. Okay. Let's look at the story problems. I am so sorry, I keep coughing. This is what happens. I'm trying to sneak in a few lessons before my husband leaves with his computer. Elliott County Christian School has 100 fifth grade students. Of the students, 60 are girls. What percent of the 5th graders are girls? So the first thing I can think of is a fraction. 60 out of the 100 students are girls, right? And I can see right now, I can get rid of each one of those. Make sure you do this with me. 6/10 reduces to 3/5. At that point, did we write 3/5 up top? I don't think we did. But think of fifths as you divide the 100 up into 5s, you get 20. So 1/5 would be 0.2, 2/5 would be 0.6, 3/5 would be 2/5 would be 2.4, and then 3/5 would be 0.6. Okay, and what is 0.6 as a percent? 60%. The high school seniors sold cupcakes to help pay for their senior trip. They sold 2 cupcakes for $1. How much money did they make if they sold 200 cupcakes? So I like to make a little what we call a ratio or proportion problem here. 2 cupcakes for $1 is the same as 200 cupcakes for how much? So the question mark is what I don't know. But if you see, I have the 2 top numbers, and I can ask myself, what did I multiply the 2 by to get 200? 100, right? So multiply $1 by 100. And I get 200. No, I get 100, sorry. Sorry. Let me erase that so you can see. Another drink. $1 times 100 is 100. So 2 cupcakes cost $1, so 200 cupcakes costs $100. All right. Okay, I think that's all we have to do. You can do the rest on your own. good phrase right here. A lot of times I don't notice them when we do our lessons together. But read that. That's a really good phrase. Something you could write in your best penmanship and hang up on your wall in your bedroom. All right. Have a good day, guys, and I will meet with you again tomorrow.